care. But the law must be followed.
Your laws are weak and ineffective, twisted by evil people to escape just punishment. Or they simply don't apply at all.
The Justice League is by far the most iconic comic book team to exist. Ever since their first appearance in Brave and the Bold number 28, the team have remained widely popular for decades. The roster isn't always the same, and we've seen on many occasions the team be torn apart or defeated by threats even greater than themselves. However, they always manage to triumph over any adversity and come out the winners in the end, due to their trust in themselves, but also their trust in who they consider to be their comrades, their friends, and even family. But what happens when the team themselves become the enemy? A group whose sole purpose was to protect those who can't fight for themselves become the bringers of destruction. The notion of an evil Justice League is hardly original. Countless stories have depicted individual members, while alternative versions, like the Crime Syndicate, offer twisted reflections of the team. This trope is so prevalent in DC lore that numerous non-DC narratives are built around it. When crafting tales of an evil Justice League, writers commonly employ two main narrative devices: the mind control plot or the corruption plot. The easiest kind of evil Justice League story to write is one involving mind control. All you have to do is find a villain who can subjugate or control people's minds. Create a scenario to support the character's control, describe how the characters can escape the mind control, and voila, you'll have an acceptable evil Justice League storyline. Now regrettably, a story like this doesn't offer much in the way of narrative depth. Mind control narratives effectively turn the Justice League into a plot device or a major obstacle in the plot. However, that's often the point, as these types of stories are the perfect vehicle to develop a separate group of heroes and create an interesting narrative about how these characters will overcome the Justice League. Mind control stories are great because they're simple and can be entertaining if done right. But personally, in terms of writing, stories about the League becoming corrupted are far more interesting, but also require a bit more writing skill to get it right. Stories about corruption are precisely what they sound like. The plots explore how the Justice League members are tainted in some way, either losing their morality or values to pursue self-serving goals disguised as acts for the good of everyone. The worlds the characters inhabit have lost faith in their heroes and their ability to do what is right. Justice Lords and Injustice, Gods Among Us are the two main stories that use the corruption narrative. Let's talk about both to compare them, as story-wise, they are essentially the same story.
This wasn't enough for you, was it? You had to have it all. Now we're on the brink of a war that could destroy the whole planet.
Could have been so perfect. Paradise.
And I let it get this far because of the law and the will of the people.
Justice Lords first appeared in Justice League Season 2, Episode 11 and 12. In Justice Lords, the Justice League have become a group of tyrants with an iron grip on the world. They appear to control the US government, but it's heavily implied that the world has gone into lockdown. Political decisions are now fully being decided on by Superman and the League. The world has become an authoritarian society, and any attempt to protest on this unhinged control leads to the Justice Lords appearing to quell any form of rebellion. Citizens are afraid of the Justice Lords, and it makes you wonder how everything fell apart to this extent. The catalyst for this shift in the world lies in events such as the demise of the Flash, who was executed, and Superman's confrontation with Lex Luthor.
Accomplice? What do you...
You could have crushed me any time you wanted. And it wasn't the law or the will of the people that stopped you. It was your ego. Being a hero was too important to you. You're as much responsible for this as I am. So go ahead, fix it somehow, put me on trial, lock me up, but I'll beat it. And then we'll start the whole thing all over again.
Superman's exchange leads him to a grim realization. His unwavering heroism and refusal to kill his villains perpetuates a cycle of chaos. Superman realizes that he enjoyed the gratitude from being a hero more than saving people, and in a shocking turn, Superman executes Luthor with the begrudging support of Batman and Wonder Woman, betraying their former principles. This action brings upon the new authoritarian society. If criminals will constantly commit crime, then why not bring upon a world where being a criminal becomes nearly unthinkable? The streets are safe and peaceful, but only because everyone is afraid to do anything that can be considered a crime. Even being a public nuisance seems to be enough to get you arrested, and minor protests lead to an aggressive police response. We can assume that many of DC's rogues gallery have either been killed off, imprisoned, or worse yet, lobotomized, if Doomsday's fate is any indication.
It's so out of character.
It's about time if you ask me.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
And what's with the new costumes, guys?
We just felt it was time for a change.
During the Justice League's visit to Arkham Asylum, there's something strange about the atmosphere. Joker is now somehow sane, and the villains in general are quiet and unassuming. The same characters, known to represent some of the worst evil individuals in the Batman universe, have become seemingly rehabilitated. Still, it's hard to say that this was accomplished without some kind of morally questionable actions, especially from Batman, who although has a new design to reflect his stepping into the sunlight, you can tell that this Batman is overall somehow worse than his black-suited version. Maybe it's because he seems to have no qualms about Gotham becoming a police state, or perhaps it's due to the state of Arkham Asylum. This seems to be a Batman who has thrown away his heroic ideals and has stolen the freedom of the people he claims he wanted to protect.
I didn't forget. I just chose peace and security instead. You grabbed power, and with that power, we've made a world where no 8-year-old boy will ever lose his parents because of some punk with a gun.
Speaking of protection, this is by far the most terrifying aspect of these Justice Lords and their authoritarian control. They genuinely believe that what they are doing is for the safety of everyone, even if it involves imprisoning their friends and family for the so-called greater good, and even hurting their loved ones to such an extent that they have to be hospitalized. And as they speak, you fully realize how far gone and disattached they become from their old ideals. The Justice Lords are terrifying because they have no one who can fight back against their oppression, and no one to tell them that what they're doing is wrong. This means that the world will never be free of their control. This by far may be the most terrifying evil Justice League we've ever seen. Not evil per se, but misguided individuals who don't realize that their actions are turning them into the villains they supposedly wanted to get rid of from the world.
Remember when everyone liked us?
Since when does that matter to you?
Since I started seeing the fear on everyone's face.
You want to talk about fear? When I was a kid, I went to bed every night scared that the whole world was gonna blow up. That's the way things were back then, and folks just accepted it. They didn't think there could be a better way, but we found one.
So do you sleep better now?
You know I do.
Disobedient children will be punished. Children? We're not gods. We don't decide who lives and who dies.
The decision is mine! It became mine when Joker turned me into a weapon of mass destruction!
I know what you lost.
And you judge me?
Justice Lords isn't the only story about a Justice League that suffers from corruption. Injustice Gods Among Us is by far the most popular narrative to use this corruption idea, and it is handled very differently from Justice Lords, with a few parallels. The Justice League's fall to evil is kickstarted by a tragic event. Just like Justice Lords, But the event itself is so much more catastrophic and devastating, as not only does Superman kill his own wife, but also his unborn child. But their deaths also lead to an atomic explosion that kills 11 million people in Metropolis, including many famous heroes in the DC universe. Superman's downfall into villainy is just as the Joker says. If tragedy had led Batman to who he is today, then imagine what an event like this would turn Superman into: an individual who in his grief would make a decision he would never be able to go back on, and plunge the world into a new era of death and destruction. This is much different from Justice Lords, whose Superman only changed due to realizing the uselessness of his heroics and the actions needed to ensure that nobody would ever commit a crime ever again.
I won't be held back by ideals that don't protect the innocent.
You're grieving.
No more, Bruce. No more. We were wrong.
Unlike Justice Lords, Superman's actions are primarily driven by a visceral sense of anger and grief. Actions permeated by Wonder Woman's constant reassurance that what he was doing was right. This Superman would ensure peace in the world, even if it meant dismantling and burning the very world and building it up again from the ashes. Somewhere within Superman's twisted goals was a noble one. He just wanted to ensure that the world would be at peace. A world with no more senseless violence, no more atrocities, and madmen running around thinking they could do anything they wanted. However, to accomplish this goal, it meant revoking the freedoms of the people. It meant killing those who disagreed with his views of what was lawful, and scaring the very people he swore to protect. But in his sorrow, he could not realize this very fact. The only bright spot to this universe is that heroes are fighting against his rule, most notably Batman and his group of rebels. In contrast, Justice Lords show that all heroes agree with Superman's actions, and no one present question his rule.
He was right, you know. About what? Put in the same position? I might have done the same thing. We never know what we're truly capable of.
I hope for your world's sake you never find out.
When injustice comes to an end and Superman's put in jail, the Superman from another universe says that, given the right circumstances, they may have quickly gone down the same dark path.
Because I've felt the same temptations he has. They're pretty strong.
So you're not such a Boy Scout after all.
In Justice Lords, it's made clear that the mainline Superman always harbors dark thoughts about establishing a new authoritarian world, and only the right push will send him down this dark path. Justice Lords and Injustice present imaginative tales of corruption and what might occur if Superman and the Justice League went too far and committed horrible crimes they could never undo. The narratives of the two stories are remarkably similar, most likely due to shared influences, but I think Justice Lords does a better job at telling a corruption story. In contrast to Injustice, the heroes' rule is unopposed by anyone, and they firmly think that what they're doing is right. Witnessing them defend their behavior is unsettling.
Can't do it, can you? I'm the last piece of your conscience. And this is the one thing you'll never do.
I've done a lot of things I thought I'd never do these last 2 years. One more won't hurt.